Let's talk about what it really means when a woman's spirit remains unshaken in the face of darkness. You see, the world will try to convince you that strength is just about how loud you can speak or how hard you can fight back, but true strength, the kind that can't be faked or fabricated, is the quiet, unmovable peace that comes when you know God is your protector. It's not that the storms don't come. They do. It's not that the betrayal doesn't hurt. It does. It's not that the whispers behind your back don't sting. They do. But when you are under God's protection, those things lose the power to break you. They might bruise you. They might knock you off balance for a moment. But they can't take you out. And that's what confuses the people who are trying to harm you. They don't understand why you're still standing. Evil people thrive on reaction. They want you rattled. They want you losing sleep. They want you second guessing your worth and questioning your purpose. And when you don't give them that satisfaction, when you respond with calm instead of chaos, they start to realize there's something bigger holding you up. That's why a woman protected by God doesn't collapse under pressure. She bends, but she does not break. She feels the weight of the trial, but she carries it with a kind of grace that doesn't make sense to the human mind. Because it's not her strength alone, it's God's strength flowing through her. Think about it. How many times have you faced something that should have destroyed you? How many nights did you cry yourself to sleep thinking, this is it. I can't take any more. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still moving, still living. That's not an accident. That's evidence. That's the hand of God steadying you when everything around you is trying to shake you loose. The enemy's plan wasn't just to hurt you. It was to silence you, to strip away your faith, to make you question if God was even paying attention. But when you are under his covering, even the attacks that hit, you can't take away the peace he gives you. It's like a tree planted deep into the ground. The wind can howl, the rain can beat down, and branches might snap, but the roots are anchored so deep that the storm passes without uprooting it. That's what God does for a woman. He protects. He plants her in such a way that her foundation isn't dependent on people's approval or circumstances staying easy. She's rooted in something unshakable. And when you have that kind of root system, the storms stop being the end of you. They become proof of how strong your roots really are. Some people will mistake your calm for weakness. They'll think you're not fighting because you're afraid. They won't realize that your silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Because when God is your defender, you don't have to swing wildly at every insult or accusation. You can stand still and let him fight for you. And while others are wasting energy trying to convince everyone of their side of the story, you're conserving your energy for the things that actually matter. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The beautiful thing is, the longer you live under that kind of protection, the less afraid you are of the next attack. You've been through enough to know that no weapon formed against you will prosper. You've seen God come through too many times to believe he'll suddenly abandon you now. And that's when your presence becomes a problem for evil people, because they realize they can't control someone who refuses to live in fear. So, yes, the enemy may try to intimidate you. Yes, people may try to push you into despair. But a woman protected by God knows this truth deep in her soul. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. And when you carry that presence with you, you can walk through the darkest valleys without losing your light. You may be targeted, but you will not be taken out. You may be shaken, but you will not be moved. Because when God is your shield, the storm may touch your skin, but it will never touch your soul. Here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need you to push it uphill forever. You can try to bury it, cover it, twist it, but sooner or later, it has a way of finding its way back to the surface. And when a woman is protected by God, the truth has a strange loyalty to her. Even when it seems like she's surrounded by lies, even when the room is full of people who have decided on a version of the story that benefits them, God has a way of letting that truth slip through the cracks and land exactly where it needs to. Evil people thrive in the shadows. They work in whispers, in half-told stories, in the little manipulations that happen when no one else is looking. They hope if they can twist the narrative early enough, they can control the outcome forever. But here's what they forget. God doesn't operate on their timeline. Just because a lie has been sitting in the spotlight for a while doesn't mean it's going to stay there. And when God steps in, he doesn't just reveal the truth. He does it in a way that leaves no doubt about who was in control all along. It's not always instant. Sometimes you have to endure seasons where you know people are believing things about you that aren't even close to true. You hear the rumors. You see the side eyes. You feel the weight of being misunderstood. And everything in you wants to fight back, to defend yourself, to shout the truth from the rooftops. But when you are under God's protection, you learn something. Not every battle needs your voice in the moment. Some battles are won in silence, with the patience to let God handle what you can't. And when that truth finally does come out, it's different. It's not just your word against theirs. It's not a fight to prove yourself. It's undeniable, unshakable in your face clarity that exposes what really happened. The lies crumble. The masks fall off. The alliances built on deception fall apart under the weight of what's real. And the people who once thought they had the power to define, you suddenly realize they never did. I've seen it happen too many times to think it's coincidence. A woman is falsely accused, and months later, the very people who spoke against her end up revealing the truth themselves, sometimes without even realizing it, or a situation that seems stacked against her flips completely because one piece of hidden evidence comes to light. And it's in those moments you understand that God's justice is not just about clearing your name, it's about showing his presence in a way that nobody can take credit for. But here's the beautiful and challenging part. Being protected by God doesn't mean you'll never be lied about. It means the lies won't win. It means that even if people believe them for a season, they won't define your future. And it means that while you wait for the truth to rise, you can live with integrity, knowing you don't have to match the level of those trying to harm you. You don't have to sink to their tactics. You don't have to manipulate your way to vindication. You can stand firm because God's timeline is perfect. That's not always easy. Waiting for the truth can feel like sitting in the middle of a storm without knowing when the clouds will break. But that's where trust grows. That's where your character is shaped. That's where you learn that your reputation may be in people's hands for a moment, but your destiny is always in God's hands. And that's a much safer place to be. Because when the truth does finally step into the light, it doesn't just clear the air, it shifts the atmosphere. It restores what was stolen. It exposes what was hidden. And it gives you something that can't be manufactured, credibility forged in fire. People look at you differently when they realize you were telling the truth all along. They see that your strength wasn't in fighting dirty, but in holding steady until God moved. So if you're in that place right now, where the lies seem louder than your voice, hold your peace. Keep walking. Keep living with integrity. Keep trusting that the God who sees everything will not let falsehood have the final word. Because when he brings the truth forward, it won't just speak, it will roar. And in that moment, everyone will know that no matter how long the night was, the sunrise was always on its way. When a woman is protected by God, one of the clearest signs is that she is never truly alone, even in the moments when it feels like she is. You can't always see it in the middle of the battle, but looking back, you notice a pattern. The right people keep showing up at the right time. Not perfect people, not people who never fail, but people whose presence feels like a lifeline exactly when you need it most. And that's not random. That's God's orchestration. Sometimes it's as simple as a phone call that comes just when you're on the edge of breaking down. You weren't planning to answer, but you did, and the voice on the other end spoke something you didn't even realize you needed to hear. Or maybe it's a friend you hadn't talked to in years suddenly reaching out, offering encouragement without even knowing what you're going through. That's how God works. He doesn't just shield you from the enemy's attacks, he also sends reinforcements when the weight gets too heavy to carry alone. Evil people often try to isolate you. That's their strategy. Cut you off from support, make you feel like nobody believes you, like you're completely on your own. They hope the loneliness will weaken you. But when God is your protector, he interrupts those plans. He places people in your path who will speak truth when lies surround you, who will pray for you when you can't even find the words, who will stand beside you in moments you didn't think anyone would. And here's the thing, sometimes people don't look like who you expected. It might not be your closest friend or a family member. It could be a stranger who says one sentence that recenters your perspective. It could be a mentor who steps into your life out of nowhere and starts guiding you without asking for anything in return. It could even be someone you once underestimated, showing up with a strength you didn't know they had. God doesn't always use the people we expect. He uses the people who will actually follow through, and it's not just about emotional support. Protection can come through practical help too. A job offer appears right after you lose income. A safe place opens up when you have to get away from a dangerous situation. A resource you didn't even know existed becomes available at the exact moment you need it. That's not coincidence. That's God weaving together a safety net before you even realize you're about to fall. What's beautiful is how this shifts your perspective on community. You stop seeing the right people in your life as just lucky breaks and start seeing them as part of a divine strategy. You begin to understand that being under God's protection doesn't just mean he shields you from harm. It means he surrounds you with people who carry pieces of his protection in their words, their actions, their presence. And sometimes those people don't even realize the role they're playing. They think they're just showing up for coffee or sending a quick message or offering you a ride. But to you, in that moment, they are the hands and feet of God in motion. They're proof that heaven's network is always working, even when you can't see it. The enemy wants you to believe you're outnumbered, but what he doesn't see is the army God has placed around you. Not always loud or obvious, but ready, willing, and perfectly positioned. And when you're aware of that, it changes the way you walk through hardship. You stop feeling like you have to do it all on your own because you recognize that God's help often comes wearing a human face. So if you've ever wondered how you've made it through seasons that should have crushed you, look back at the people who were there. The ones who prayed with you, encouraged you, defended you, or simply reminded you that you matter. Those weren't just random acts of kindness. Those were divine appointments. And every single one of them is a reminder that when God is protecting you, he will never leave you without help. Even in your loneliest moments, heaven is still sending reinforcements. And when God sends reinforcements, you are never truly outnumbered. You are already winning. One of the most underrated signs that a woman is protected by God is how he redirects her steps away from harm before she even realizes the danger. Sometimes we think protection only happens when we're rescued out of trouble, but a lot of the time, God protects by keeping us from walking into it in the first place. And because we don't always see what's on the other side of a closed door, we can mistake his redirection for rejection. Think about the times when something you really wanted just didn't work out. Maybe it was a relationship you thought was perfect, but it suddenly fell apart without explanation. Or a job you were excited about that ended up going to someone else. Or a plan you were building your hopes on that collapsed at the last minute. At the time, it felt like disappointment. It felt like loss. But later, sometimes much later, you look back and realize that if you had gotten what you wanted, you would have stepped right into a situation that would have drained you, broken you, or even destroyed you. That no was never meant to hurt you. It was meant to save you. Evil people know how to disguise danger. They don't always come at you waving red flags. They come smiling, offering opportunities, presenting themselves as exactly what you've been praying for. And without God's protection, it's easy to get pulled into something that looks like a blessing, but is actually a trap. That's why his redirection is so important. He sees what's behind the curtain. He knows the conversations you're not hearing, the intentions you're not seeing, the consequences you're not imagining. And because of that, he will close doors you were ready to walk through if he knows there's poison on the other side. Sometimes that protection feels frustrating. We don't like being told, wait, or not this. We like momentum. We like progress. But here's the thing. God isn't interested in just getting you somewhere quickly. He's interested in getting you somewhere safely. And that means he will let certain things fall apart to keep you intact. There's a story I've seen play out countless times. A woman prays for a relationship to work out, puts all her energy into making it happen, and then watches it crumble. She's heartbroken. She feels like God ignored her prayers. But a year later, she finds out that person was lying, manipulating, or living a life that would have crushed her spirit. What looked like a breakup was actually a rescue mission. And the beauty of God's protection is that sometimes he saves you without you even realizing you were in danger. The same is true with opportunities. You might feel like you missed your big break, but what if that big break would have demanded you compromise your values? What if it would have placed you under the authority of someone who would mistreat or exploit you? God's protection doesn't just secure your physical safety. It preserves your purpose, your integrity, your calling. And that means some doors are meant to stay shut, no matter how much we want them open. It's also worth saying that not every detour is an accident. Sometimes God reroutes you because the straight path you're trying to take has an ambush waiting on it. So he takes you the long way around. It may feel slow. It may feel like everyone else is getting ahead. But the long way is the safe way when God is guiding your steps. And when you finally arrive where you're supposed to be, you realize he didn't just keep you safe. He kept you whole. So the next time a plan falls apart, pause before you call it failure. Ask yourself if maybe this is God's way of steering you away from something you can't yet see. Protection doesn't always feel like protection in the moment. Sometimes it feels like loss, like confusion, like an answered prayer. But when you are under God's covering, even the disappointments are strategic. He's not trying to withhold from you. He's trying to withhold something dangerous from reaching you. And if you've ever been in a situation where you look back and say, I don't know how I dodged that bullet, that's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's a God who saw the danger before you did and loved you enough to change your direction. Because when he's protecting you, even your detours are divine, and every single no becomes proof that he's making sure you don't just arrive somewhere, you arrive there unharmed. One of the most powerful signs that a woman is protected by God is the way her discernment becomes razor sharp against deception. This isn't just about being smart or experienced. It's about a spiritual awareness that you can't buy, teach, or fake. It's like a built-in alarm system that goes off before danger even reaches the door. You may not be able to explain exactly why you feel uneasy about a person or situation, but deep down, and more often than not, time proves that what you felt was right. Evil rarely shows up looking evil. It knows how to put on a mask. It knows how to dress itself in charm, generosity, or even fake spirituality to make you let your guard down. Without discernment, it's easy to get caught up in appearances, in smooth words, in the surface level impression someone is trying to give you. But when God is protecting you, he gives you an inner radar, a kind of holy instinct that spots the cracks in the disguise before anyone else does. It can happen in small ways. You meet someone and on paper, they seem perfect for your life, maybe as a friend, a partner, a business contact. Everyone else around you is singing their praises. but something in your spirit just doesn't settle. You don't have proof. You don't have a list of facts. All you have is that still, quiet sense that something is off. That's not paranoia. That's protection. It's God nudging you, saying, pay attention, don't ignore this. And sometimes that discernment will lead you to make decisions that other people don't understand. You might distance yourself from someone everyone else adores. You might turn down an opportunity everyone else says is perfect. You might walk away from a conversation before it turns toxic. People might even call you overly cautious or accuse you of being closed off. But when the truth eventually comes out, when the mask falls and the real motives are exposed, those same people will realize you weren't being difficult. You were being protected. Here's the thing, discernment isn't always about danger that's loud and obvious. Sometimes it's about recognizing when something is just slightly off. A subtle manipulation, a quiet disrespect, a hidden agenda. Those are the things that can erode your peace over time if you're not paying attention. God's protection gives you the sensitivity to notice them early before they have a chance to take root. And this gift of discernment grows the more you listen to it. Every time you trust that still, small voice instead of dismissing it, you strengthen your ability to hear it. Every time you act on it, even when it's uncomfortable, you're training yourself to recognize God's guidance faster. And the more you practice that, the more impossible it becomes for someone with evil intentions to get close enough to do serious damage. What's amazing is how discernment can also protect you from repeating old mistakes. Maybe you've been hurt before by people who seemed good at first. Maybe you've been blindsided by betrayal or caught off guard by someone's true colors. Without discernment, it's easy to fall into the same patterns again, thinking this time will be different. But with God's protection, you start noticing the red flags sooner. You see the similarities. You remember the lessons. You make choices that your past self might not have had the courage to make. And let's be honest, sometimes discernment will lead you to walk away from things that are almost right, almost good, almost safe. Those are the hardest decisions because part of you wants to hold on and hope the flaws will fix themselves. But God's protection is not about settling for almost. It's about keeping you from anything that could slowly pull you away from His plan for your life, no matter how appealing it looks in the moment. The more you trust that gift, the freer you become. You stop needing every reason to be laid out before you act. You stop waiting for proof before you move. You start living with the quiet confidence that if God is giving you a check in your spirit, it's for a reason. And that reason is always for your good. So if you've ever walked away from someone or something without a full explanation and later found out why it was the right choice, hold on to that. That's the kind of protection you can't measure in the moment, but you can see in hindsight. That's the safety that comes from being in tune with God's voice. Because when He sharpens your discernment, deception loses its power over you. And when deception loses its power, the enemy loses access. One of the most undeniable signs that a woman is protected by God is the way her story ends up inspiring others to seek that same shelter for themselves. Not because her life has been perfect, far from it. In fact, it's often the pain she's walked through, the battles she's faced, and the scars she carries that make her testimony so powerful. People look at her and realize she's not standing because she's never been hit. She's standing because she's never been abandoned. There's something magnetic about someone who has been through the fire and still carries themselves with grace. You can hear it in her voice, see it in her eyes, the calm, unshaken assurance that she's not here by accident. When a woman is truly under God's protection, the attacks she survived become the very evidence that draws others closer to Him. People may come to her out of curiosity, wondering, how did you make it through that? And she doesn't have to give a rehearsed answer. Her life is the answer. Evil people may have tried to silence her, thinking that if they could break her spirit, her influence would die with it. But what they didn't realize is that God doesn't just protect her life. He protects her purpose. Every time they tried to bury her, they were actually planting a seed. And those seeds sprout into a story that other people can find hope in. That's why her testimony has weight. It's not theory. It's not just nice words. It's lived experience backed by the undeniable truth that she should not have survived. But she did. And the beauty of it is, she doesn't have to parade her pain or wear her struggles like a badge to get attention. She lives her life in a way that naturally reflects what God has done for her. She treats people with kindness, not because everyone has treated her that way, but because she's learned the strength of mercy. She chooses forgiveness, not because it's easy, but because she knows bitterness is a chain she refuses to wear. She moves forward with confidence, not because she's never been rejected, but because she's learned rejection can be God's redirection. The people watching her may not even be the ones she's trying to reach. It could be a coworker noticing how she handles unfair treatment without losing her peace. It could be a family member seeing her walk away from toxic patterns without losing her love for the people involved. It could be a friend who's going through their own storm, realizing they can make it because they've seen her make it. God uses her life like a lighthouse. She doesn't chase the ships. She just stands where she is, shining in the dark, showing the way to safety. That's the thing about a woman protected by God. Her story stops being just her story. It becomes a survival guide for someone else. The wisdom she's gained through her battles becomes the exact encouragement someone else needs to hear at the exact moment they need to hear it. And she may never even know the full extent of the lives she's impacted. And it's not that she's fearless. She's human. She's had nights where she cried until she couldn't cry anymore, mornings where she didn't feel like getting out of bed, moments where the weight of it all felt crushing. But because she's been carried through those moments by something greater than herself, she walks differently now. She faces new challenges with the quiet conviction that she's already been through worse. And God never failed her then. Her life becomes proof that you can be hit and still heal, targeted and still triumph, wounded and still win. And that proof has a way of silencing doubt in the people around her. It makes them believe, if God can do it for her, maybe he can do it for me too. And that's the point. Her survival isn't just for her. It's a beacon for everyone else still in the middle of their own storm. So while the enemy may have planned to use her struggles to destroy her influence, God turns every trial into a testimony. And by the time the dust settles, she's not just surviving, she's leading others toward the same protection that kept her alive. Because when a woman is truly under God's covering, her life doesn't just tell a story. It tells his story, and in that story, no evil plan ever gets the final word.